right? The conversation with your father was really important. Because I feel like your father also has some responsibility here. But I want to have some compassion on him too. But he has absolutely some responsibility here. Your father has responsibility in the area that what he should have done was also as the mother. And this is why the mother was so powerful. And I won't go there just yet. I'll get there later on. The mother was so powerful because she offered compassion and empathy even to the father, even when he was doing madness, even when she found out some information just recently. Now, that takes some grace. That honestly takes some grace for Clay's mum to tell the father, hey, look, in a compassionate way, you need to talk to your son. Because some things that you did, you don't realize has impacted him. It took some grace. It took some forgiveness. It took her healing. And it took all her strength not to slap the blackness out of that man. I'm telling you, I know she was angry. Because at the end, she couldn't hold the conversation. And I understand. Because why should I wait how many years to find out on national television, or let me say, through a national television show, that my son was complicit because you were making him complicit in your schemes of cheating. Now, of course, his mind is going to be messed up. You have a greater responsibility as a parent, as a father. Yes, you didn't have your dad, but that is irresponsible. So I place a greater weight on the father, but I have compassion for you because God would too, right? I have compassion for you. I understand that you were probably thinking you were doing your best as you could, but you were selfish. And because of your selfishness, your son is now suffering the generational consequences of your sins. Now, here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. What Clay needs to hear from you is what the mother was telling you. Clay needs you to go and tell him that, listen, and it's funny because the father was trying to point out towards the mum saying, oh, if he just marries a great woman like you, he'll be fine. And that's when I realized the dad still hasn't learned. Chai. The dad still has not learned. Clay's father still hasn't grown up. He still hasn't matured. I do apologize if you ever get a chance to watch this. I'm not here to disrespect my elders. I want to let you know, but the response told me he hadn't grown up yet. Because your response was, he just needs to marry someone like his mum. Why? Why didn't you understand that you married someone like your mum and like you married her and you still did what you did? You hadn't learned. And that was even what was more sad for me. And I was like, yo, the realization hasn't dropped yet. It hasn't dropped yet. Because your answer is telling us that you think by just marrying a good woman, it automatically qualifies you to make you a great man. It doesn't work like that. There is work that needs to be done on your side. There's work that needs to be done within yourself. There's work that needs to be done for you to grow. And that's why I said I have compassion on Clay, because no matter what I feel about Clay's decision on decision day, the brother said he needs to go and get help. That I can always honor, and that I can always appreciate from a brother. Because now he's going to get the help that's going to change not only his life, but generations' life. Do you know why God trusted Abraham? Because he trusted that Abraham would teach his sons about who God is. So he could trust Abraham. Right? And so in this situation, Clay's dad hasn't learned. So he can't pass on that wisdom. Because had it been, his father would have pulled him aside and said, son, let me tell you something. You are lacking in some certain areas. Let me tell you, you're lacking in some certain areas. Before you go into that situation, I want to let you know, these areas, if you don't fix them, they're going to destroy your marriage. But what his dad could give is what his dad had. I hear it. So what his dad passed on was, if you're a winner, you can make this work. Those who have a strong will, those who have a strong will to win, they make it work. And marriage doesn't work because you have a strong will to make it win. It's not about winning nor losing. It is about understanding. Now, he did mention that a little bit. Let me not fight him. He did mention that a little bit. It got lost in translation a little bit because he started speaking about running and he started being a little bit and I noticed a little bit of excitement when he talks about him running and doing athletics, and almost like I felt like the moment a little bit. No offense to the dad was sucking up the moment a little bit too much, just a little bit too much. Just me, okay. So in that moment, what I'm saying to you is that you know, relationships is about the understanding. And I know that dad did touch a little bit on it. He mentioned about winning, losing, but he mentioned about understanding a little bit as well when he was talking to him before he went out the first time. But I wanted to add that it's not just that understanding also. It is also to do with the fact that when you look at the situation, I have to pass on aspects and let me put it this way. I had a conversation with my dad when I was probably about a couple of years ago, when I was in a relationship. And he said, son, you're not there yet. And I said, yeah, but I'm still going to go though. I'm still going to go. He said, son, I'm telling you, you're not a man yet. Wait till you get there. So when that relationship ended, and I went back to my dad, okay? I went back to my dad to ask him, what did he mean by that? He told me this in no uncertain words. And I want to pass this on to any man who's listening to this, sisters, aunties, whatever. Pass it to your sons, pass it to your cousins. He said, listen, what I could see from you, right, is you hadn't reached yet. And what I mean by you hadn't reached yet, you weren't able to lead that woman the way you needed to. One, the job that you had wasn't the way you wanted it to be. Number two, you weren't living in your own quarters, so you'd have to maneuver. And three, she was a much stronger character than you were. And you would have had trouble trying to lead her. You'd have been fighting. And I was like, this guy didn't even meet the girl that many times. He met her like once or twice. And I was like, how did he do that? And the funny thing is, at the end of the relationship, everything he said was absolutely what I understood. And he said to me, I wish somebody would have told me when I was getting married, but I didn't get that because I didn't have a dad. And I was like, wow. Wisdom. There is no small feat to have a father, as a black man specifically, because we're living in a different world now. We live in a white man's world, so let's be honest. It is no small feat to have a father who's wise and can pass on knowledge. We see this with Solomon and David. David passes on a batch of knowledge to Solomon, and he encompasses it with his own wisdom and formulates what we call Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. Now, even with Solomon's wisdom and what he had understood from his father, he still repeated some of the mistakes of his father. Even with the knowledge of what he knew David had done, because David had several wives, even with that, he still went out and had 700 wives and 300 concubines or whatever he had, and made a similar mistake David did. Women was his issue. Do you know why? Because he hadn't dealt with the emotional wound that he had. Because no matter what David would have done, having several wives and then having Solomon, there's no way you would have been able to give him the time and the energy and the emotional care that he needed. So emotionally, Solomon was out here in the streets just like I was for the last 3 years. I'm telling you, I can have some compassion on Solomon now. When I was looking at Solomon, I was like, hey, 700 wives. But guess what? If I had the opportunity, me too, I'll have 700 wives. Because I'm emotionally wounded. And when you're emotionally wounded and you've not learned to grow from that and heal from that, as a man, when you get power, status, and wealth, you will definitely abuse it with women because you need to fill that wound up. Definitely. Right? So I understand where Solomon's coming from, even though he had wisdom. And so in this circumstance of Clay and his father, the fact that Clay has some aspect of his father is a powerful thing. But unfortunately, his father couldn't pass on the necessary wisdom to let him know there's some wounds. Right? Now, only by the grace of God am I not married. I can't even say that's my father per se, because had it not been for God, I would have been married and probably divorced by now. Do you get what I'm saying to you? So when I'm looking at Clay and I'm looking at AD and I'm looking at Clay and I'm looking at his father and I look at what he passed on and I look what he's passed on, I understand why Clay is anxious and I understand why Clay probably he's even given fearful avoidant, not even anxious, more fearful avoidant. I can understand why Clay is in a disarray. He wants to be like his father and be smooth and be so easy on the eye and be this kind of player, but he's a mother's boy. So there are two things conflicting in his mind and his process. Let me be the smooth guy and the quote-unquote F-boy, but I'm a mama's boy. I've got emotions. I feel empathy. I feel these things, and I don't want to hurt somebody. But the two are in juxtaposition, and they're beefing right now, Clay. And I hear you, bro. You're in beef right now because you're trying to find out who is Clay. Am I the person that's a smooth talker, that smooth the pants of a woman? Or am I the man that wants to be able to be loyal, faithful, and be that great husband? Guess what? There's a marriage of the two. You can be a smooth talker that gets you into the marriage, but you also understand loyalty and faithfulness and fidelity. But you've got to marry the two. And the two marry when one begins to heal the emotional wounds. And you take the power of this side and you take the power of this side and you merge it together. Now, had I not, like I said, had it not been for God to kind of intervene in my situation, I would have been the emotionally wounded individual in a marriage. Still trying to make it work. Okay? Still trying to make it work. So, Clay, I understand where you're coming from. You're trying to understand you. You're trying to get to a balance of you. And that's only going to come when you begin to heal. That therapy is going to be absolutely powerful for you. And when you finally get through that phase, I'm telling you, you're going to be in a